Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Brandy. Hi, everybody joining. We're just going to wait for a few more people to join us across our platforms. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube today. So we're just going to give it a couple minutes, and then we'll get started.
Great.
How's it going since I last saw you 3 minutes ago as we prepped?
It's good. It's actually cold out today. I thought it was going to be really warm, but still facing the cold. But loving the dogwood blossoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we're for those of you who don't know, we're based in DC at headquarters, and so we have the cherry blossoms blooming here as well. So it's fun to watch all the blossoms happen. Hi, Peter. Welcome to everybody joining. I'm Lindsay. This is Brandy. We're going to get started in just a little bit. We're just waiting a little bit longer for everybody to join us. Yeah, like I told you yesterday, Brandy, our peach trees are blossoming too at my home in West Virginia, and we're really worried about the freeze. So we might.
Did it freeze last night? I know. I was actually telling my kids about that last night. That there was a possibility of the peach blossoms freezing. And
yeah, it got low. I think tonight is the bigger worry. So we'll see. The good thing is they weren't in complete bloom, so
right.
We'll have some.
I think moving forward, it's supposed to get warmer. So
just
there were actually snow flurries yesterday afternoon around 4 or 5.
I thought it was blossoms.
It was, at least not where I was.
I probably think there aren't snowflakes in Guatemala, though, Alfredo, just up here in the East Coast region of the States. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Moody. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Hi, George. Hi, Florence. Florence is one of our newest team members at Trees. I'm really excited to have her at Trees and on the live. So we're just going to wait a little bit longer, just another minute or so until we have everybody on and ready to join and listen today as we discuss our approach. Again, I'm Lindsay, this is Brandy, and we'll just get started in a little bit. And guys, just a reminder, we are going to be answering your comments, questions in the comments. So if Brandy and I aren't discussing them directly on the live, we will get to your answer in the feed on the comments where you ask them. So just sit tight for that. I see Elizabeth's joining from YouTube. We've got George and Florence and Alfredo from Facebook. I wonder how everybody's liking it. This is the first time we've done this streaming on multiple services, so we're really excited to be able to bring you all trees information from multiple different platforms. So please let us know how it goes for you on your end, and we'll definitely make sure to make the most out of these opportunities and bring you the information in the best way that we can. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started here in just another minute. Yes, Elizabeth, yes, it is. It is cool that we can participate from different places. Hi, Gabe. All right, with that, now that Gabe's here, let's get started, Brandy. So for those of you just joining us, I mentioned before, I'm Lindsay, this is Brandy. But to give you, formal introductions, my name's Lindsay Kopp. I'm on the marketing team here at Trees for the Future, and you are joining us for our very first Good News Friday. We're going to have these every Friday of April to celebrate Earth Month, and really talk about what good is going on and digging into the positive solutions that Trees for the Future has, and all of the different impacts that we're making together with all of you, our supporters, our staff, and the farmers we serve. And I'm joined today by Brandy. So Brandy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and we'll get started.
Thanks, Lindsay. I'm Brandy Lellou. Hello to everyone joining us from around the world. It's super exciting to see almost every continent represented. I am the program director at Trees for the Future, and really my job is to support our field staff. Trees for the Future has an amazing field teams in Senegal, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya, and now Mali and Chad. So we're super excited about this conversation today. And I just really want to stress that although my job involves a lot of planning and coordination, it's really Trees teams on the ground that do all the amazing hard work and make the impact. And so I just want to do a shout out and say thank you all, because I know it's been a really, really difficult year and you've made amazing strides. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. All the more reason for some good news, right, in the face of the year we've had. So Brandy, tell us a little bit about your background so people can understand your expertise and just your personal experience in from your personal life in agriculture and international development.
Yeah, so I grew up on a 2,000-acre dryland wheat farm in eastern Colorado. So much of the experiences that farmers are facing throughout the world, farmers face in the U.S. and have for decades as well. So we'll dig into that in a bit. But I served in the Peace Corps in Mauritania, West Africa, and then stayed in Mauritania for another 7 years. Really loved the country and people, and I joined Trees a couple of years ago, but I've actually been involved with Trees work as a volunteer and doing writing over the years for the last 10 years. And I think that farming is really the most important job in the world. So I feel very fortunate to be able to work with farmers and farming communities and Trees technicians to both work together and learn from all their knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, Brandy was really integral in the writing of One Shot with our executive director, John Leary. So if you haven't read that before, make sure you take a look at that. So as Brandy kind of touched on with, the difficulties and the challenges that farmers face around the globe, that's really what we're going to be talking about today. And so in the spirit of Earth Month, we're talking about a really serious problem being, the climate crisis, environmental challenges that we're facing, and something that's at the crux of all of that being land degradation and unsustainable land use. So Brandy, can you speak a little bit to the overarching challenge that we see, not just as an organization that we're addressing, but what we as a globe and a society are facing when we look at our land use and where it's taken us and where it's going?
Yeah, and we hear a lot about land use now and land use change, and that the land use change is actually both the problem and the solution. So when we think about this in terms of farming, over what was sustainable 50 years ago in terms of monocropping and farmers plowing the earth, sowing seeds, waiting for the harvest, harvesting, and then plowing and starting all over again, is no longer sustainable. This methodology of farming, because now we have a population increase, so we have more people to feed. Over the years, soils have become degraded through water and wind erosion, so the soil quality is less, which reduces yields. We're also seeing more insect invasions. And then, with the onslaught of climate change, you see hotter, drier seasons, more unpredictable rainfall. So farmers are really, facing all these obstacles. And then when you look at small scale farmers in Africa, they have those challenges in addition to not having extra resources such as crop insurance and credit and fertilizers, sustainable water sources. So really the land has more pressure and the farmers have more pressure throughout the world.
Mm-hmm. So when a lot of us who might not be in farming day to day think of agriculture, especially, in the industrialized sense. We talk a lot at Trees about monocropping. Can you just describe kind of, in a couple sentences how monocrop agriculture leads to the challenges you just described?
Yeah, so when farmers are monocropping or growing 1 to 2 crops a year, they have 9 months of work growing their crops, and then once the crop is harvested, a lot of times the debris is raked into piles, burned, and the land is left barren. And so then throughout the dry season, the land gets even more dry and hardens, and when the rains come, they can't infiltrate the ground. Then there's wind and water erosion. The land is susceptible to grazing cattle and goats and sheep. So over the last, since the late 70s, the population in sub-Saharan Africa doubled, but the grazing population of animals more than tripled. And so we're seeing like just a really large number of grazing animals that also impact farmland, during those dry seasons. Yeah. Howard Buffett wrote a book that was actually quoted in one shot. And one of the things that really stood out was that farmers only have, really over their lifetime, if everything goes well and they're very healthy, about 40 chances to grow a crop if they grow one crop a year. And so that's, when you think about it in those terms, it's very limiting. And so our goal is to really help farmers to acquire those technical skills to grow multiple crops and have hundreds of chances throughout to produce crops.
When we talk about 40 chances to succeed in a lifetime, we're also looking at a lot of people who are only giving themselves 40 or who only have 40 chances to succeed. For those of us, just joining, we're going over our challenges that we're facing in sustainable and unsustainable land use. And so when we look back at, so many reports that have come out in the last decade, in the last year or two, we see, 1.5 billion or more people are reliant on land that is degraded. A third of their soil, a third of our global soil is gone, degraded, and it takes a long time to build it back. So that being said, we didn't bring you here on Good News Friday to talk about the bad.
Right.
So we see these problems. They're urgent. They're serious. It's critical. But what is the good news that we're here to share today, Brandy? What is the solution that we at Trees for the Future have proven?
So the solution that we're really here to talk about today is the forest garden approach. The forest garden, well, first let me back up and just say that there's many organizations throughout the world that are doing amazing work, that are doing reforestation projects on public lands, but between all of the public lands and natural forests and that can be reforested, there's 27 million smallholder farmers. And when we say smallholder farmers, we're talking about people that have less than 5 acres of land. And many of them are doing either some kind of monocrop of grain or cash crop. Cash crops being cocoa, coffee, cotton, tobacco. And so the Trees for the Future really focuses on farmers that have less than 5 acres of land and farmers that are doing some kind of monocropping, because that's a large amount of land, 27 million times 5. So, and this land cannot be just reforested. It has to remain productive. It has to be able to grow crops for communities and people's family, and it also has to generate income, because that farmers rely on that income for their survival. So the approach really focuses on making farmers the center of the system. Mm-hmm. And trees can be planted on degraded land, but it's very hard for them to survive. So farmers become stewards of the trees on their land, and then in turn the trees benefit farmers in multiple ways. They provide fodder, firewood, fruits, nuts, and they create a living fence that protects the field. It creates a microclimate for other crops to be able to grow. And within that microclimate, then farmers can create a diverse number of vegetables and other crops.
So, and this, for those of you just joining us, is the forest garden approach that we're talking about. Let me just back up very briefly for those who just joined. This is Brandy, I'm Lindsay, we're part of the Trees team here. And we're talking about the forest garden approach and our solution at Trees for the Future to the world's most pressing challenges, climate change, land degradation, and what's at the root cause of that is our land use, the way that we use the land on this planet. And so through the forest garden approach, what Brandy has just started to explain is that we're helping train farmers to restore their land in a really sustainable, regenerative way. So Brandy, with that being said, can you walk us through how we get started in the program, when we, in any given region, start working with a group of farmers to train them in the forest garden approach? What does that look like?
First, I would like to say that Trees is working in 5 countries, and actually 6 now with Mali, where we're applying the forest garden approach methodology. There's about 200 technicians that are trained in this methodology and certified throughout those countries. So it's really the Trees country teams that help identify and work with farmers to understand what the program involves. So they start with identifying areas where there's large amount of degraded land, which has led to increased poverty, reduced yields, and food insecurity. And so Trees teams holds focus groups with farmers, and often they find in the beginning that farmers are very both leery and weary of aid organizations and even agriculture extension, because they've been promised many things in the past, and the solution has not worked for them. Often farmers will choose their most degraded piece of land as the land to register in the program. So farmers register up to 1 to 2 acres of land in the program, and Trees technicians explain to them what they're getting and what from the program and what they're giving to the program. So they come with their land, labor, and time. And when I say land, of course, it's not us using the land, it's their land, and they have complete ownership of that, but just the land to work on. Then Trees provides seed, planting materials, so biodegradable bags, tools, and training. And training is really the foundation of our program. So all of the other materials are just supplement to help get there, but the training is the fundamental component. And there's 16 modules that farmers are trained on over a 4-year period. And they learned all the technical skills and really hands-on training to develop their forest gardens.
And when we talk about our 4-year forest garden approach, we often speak about the 4 phases. We start with protection, we move through diversification and optimization. Can you explain for those who might be newer to this practice and regenerative and sustainable agriculture and agroforestry, why those are such key elements in restoring land, and why that is better for the land than what we were talking about earlier, monocropping, where you're just planting one grain or one type of crop in a field?
Yeah, and the forest garden is not a new approach. It's a centuries old practice, but the application of it to dry land farming and monocropping is new, and it starts with what Lindsay just described as the protection phase, which is creating a perimeter living fence around the field. And this is a 2 or 3 layer living fence of trees planted very close together that create an impenetrable barrier to keep out grazing animals and to also prevent wind and water erosion, to create that microclimate that we were talking about. So it creates a much cooler environment inside the field. The roots of those trees infiltrate water back into the ground. And then the leaves of those trees are harvested and worked back into the soil as compost and as soil amendment to bring that organic matter back up back into the field and really build up soils. Mm-hmm. As those trees grow, farmers are able to prune the branches of some of the trees to keep that nice form, and then use those branches as fuel wood, firewood. Mm-hmm. It really becomes, that protection phase becomes very, very important. Then farmers, they move on to diversification, where they plant alley cropping, fruit trees, a variety of vegetables, and this really helps diversify the portfolio of what they can sell and eat throughout the year. So the goal is for farmers to have something to eat, sell, or trade each month of the year, and often they achieve more than one thing. But I think you had mentioned this, Lindsay, that you think about it in terms of finances. So if you had a portfolio of finances, you wouldn't put all of your money in one, or all your eggs in one basket, right? All of your money in one spot. So this really helps to diversify income and also protect against any crop loss. So if you lose one crop, you still have another to fall back on. And then the optimization phase is looking at the land. So when you're looking at land and you're planting just peanuts or just corn, you're only using the horizontal space on that land. But with forest garden, you're also using that vertical space. So you have trees growing up, you have vines growing up trees, you have mid-level plants, you have ground cover. So you're really optimizing kind of every inch of that vertical and horizontal space on the land.
Yeah, I like to think of the forest garden approach as, getting the most out of the land without taking everything from the land, right? When I lived and worked in Kansas, kind of close to where Brandy grew up, it was explained to me like, well, we have to do this to feed the planet. We have to spray these chemicals. We have to clear all these trees. But through the forest garden approach, we're really proving that there's a homeostasis, there's a balance between the farmer and the land that works for the farmer and the land. So as we kind of approach 1 o'clock, Brandy, I want you to speak a little bit to our secret to success. What makes Trees for the Future and our forest garden approach so successful? And for all of the folks that are watching today, obviously, why should they believe in us? Why should they support us?
So I would say, if we had to give them in order, the number one is our field staff. So Trees field staff is extremely knowledgeable about local languages, customs, farming practices. Some technicians even grew up in the area, went to college, got their degree in agriculture, agroforestry, and now are coming back to help farmers in their community. And like this is very powerful. These connections. Also, the training program. So the training program that Trees uses was developed by our executive director, John Larry, and the training program really hones in on hands-on technical skills that farmers need to succeed, mm-hmm. and to be able to take home those activities and apply them to their fields. Mm-hmm. And now we've expanded out our training program, so we have actually training sites in each country. We have in-country trainers. We have a deputy director of training. And so really building out our training team is enhancing the program as we move forward. But our technicians and our field staff that work with farmers is definitely the fundamental of our success. Then I would also say that the methodology itself, so definitely the protection phase of the field, and it's something that's not really done frequently. And so farmers being able to see that the return quickly within a year or two, and really being able to protect their fields so that they can diversify their crops quickly, is a huge success.
What about,
Brandy? What am I
forgetting? No, this is great. What about, we talked about our training locations and being able to have staff in all of these different countries. For those of you who follow us closely, we are active in 9 countries, and that's in part due to our collaborative partnerships. Brandy, can you talk a little bit about how we can scale at Trees for the Future through collaboration and replication of our program?
So the first basically 7 to 8 years of our program, with the forest garden approach, we're really focusing on trees implementing projects, and we call that our expansion pathway. And that's trees employees working with farmers directly on the ground. And that has been very, very effective. But in order to scale, we're going to definitely need partners. And so a couple of years ago, we started working with partners local partners that already have a farming base, or cooperative organizations that already have a large farmer groups. And this year, we're really starting to see success in that. Now we also have all of these graduate farmers who've graduated from the program, and the lead farmers of those groups are training their neighbors. And we call this our Plant It Forward program. And I'm super excited about this because it's really taking hold, and we're seeing some really good success with this in Uganda and Senegal.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorites too, Plant It Forward. Okay, well, Brandy, I think this has been really helpful. I hope it's been helpful for the folks who are watching. When we talk about Good News Fridays, we want to be able to show you all of the good that we're doing in the face of all of these challenges that we all see on a regular basis, especially in Earth Month, Earth Day being April 22nd, April being Earth Month. And so we thank you all so much for joining us today. If you have any questions that you didn't get to ask, make sure that you leave them in the comments, and we'd love to get back to you on them. Just a couple of things that we touched on throughout. Make sure that you go to training.trees.org if you were interested in the approach from a practical level of, I see some organizations in the comments. If you're interested in implementing the forest garden approach in your own area, those are free resources that we're happy to share with you and happy to work with you on. So when at Trees for the Future, when we're able to work in 9 countries, when we're able to plant, 210 million plus trees in the last 30 years and 50 million trees this year, hopefully, right, Brandy? Not hopefully, we will plant 50 million trees this year. That's all made possible through donor support. We have individual donors, brand partnerships, institutional funders, but you all right now watching are really what make Trees for the Future's work possible. And so in honor of Earth Month, we're asking everybody to consider becoming a Sustainer Circle member of Trees for the Future, meaning you're a monthly donor. You can give any amount, $1, $10, $50, whatever works for your budget. That monthly gift ensures that we're able to continue doing the work that Brandy and I have been talking about today. So you make it possible, and we need you to continue doing this great work that Brandy has been so gracious to talk us through today. We want to thank everybody for joining us today. I saw some ambassadors, I saw some brand partners, I saw a ton of staff. So thank you all for joining. Brandy, did you want to share any last bit before we wrapped up?
I just want to, again, thank all of our Trees staff across Africa, because we've had a really, really amazing year in 2020, despite COVID. It was really so cool to see how teams worked around and had remote communication with farmers during the difficult time, and were able to get nurseries developed. And so I know we're going into 2021 with a lot more hope than we had before, and we're really excited to get back out to the field and see all the great work. And so I just want to say thank you, everyone, and have a nice long weekend, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Brandy, and thank you everyone for joining. Like I said, please continue adding your questions to the comments. We'll get to those. This is on record, so we're gonna be sharing it across our platforms as the recorded version, and we'll also be sharing it in our newsletter. So if you don't already subscribe to our newsletter and wanna be able to share this with friends, family, people you wanna get educated about the forest garden approach and trees for the future, be sure to sign up for our newsletter, and we'll drop that in the comments as well. And then if you become a donor or a Sustainer Circle member, those newsletters are really great to drop stories into your email to tell you what you're making possible on a regular basis for farmers, their communities, and the planet. So thank you all for joining us for our first Good News Friday. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, with Andrew Zachariah, and we'll be talking about nutrition. So we'll see you then. Thank you, Brandy.